Hey folks, Coach Patrick here from Marathon Nation, back with another weekly video for me. And this accompanies my blog post from this week, talking about heat-beating gear. Now, a lot of times for those of you who live in hot areas or who are racing hot events, we'll look to modify our training, our nutrition plans, or even our pacing as means to accommodate the conditions. But there's also other ways to beat the heat, and sometimes you can spend money to do it these days, right? You can spend money on anything, right? And so you can spend money to beat the heat. And there are three products or three things that I use to beat the heat that I think could be beneficial to you. I'm going to run through them very quickly and talk to you a little bit about my experiences, and you take what you want from them and leave the rest, okay? Number one, most important piece of heat-beating gear is sunscreen, sunblock in particular. The brand I use is Scape, S-C-A-P-E. And you can find them online, I believe, at scape.com, or you can Google Scape sunblock, and you'll see more about it. SPF of 50, supposedly, chemically created just for athletes to allow for protection, but also breathability, which you want. At the end of the day, sunblock's critical because I want to be able to run or race in gear that's comfortable for me in those conditions. And given that I'm a heavy sweater, a bigger guy, I like lighter weight clothing, usually kind of snug, so I reduce chafing. And as such, a lot of me ends up being exposed. I got a lot of surface area, and it's easy to get sunburned. And that sunburn, or that constant exposure to sun, can really add up. And if you don't believe me, right now it's June in New England. Get outside on a sunny day. It's only going to be in the 70s, but sit out in the sun. Stand in the shade for a minute and then go sit in the direct sun. And just sit there for like 3 minutes. Even though it's like 74 and sunny, you're going to get pretty damn hot in just a couple minutes. And you can imagine what that feels like when you're running, what it's doing to your body. You don't necessarily feel it as much when you're running because you've got that motion of the wind against your body, which sort of naturally cools you, as well as the sweat coming through. But the net is you're definitely a lot hotter than you would otherwise be. And anything even warmer than the 70s, 75s, and the 80s, it becomes really, really hot. And taking care of your body, especially the exposed skin, is critical. So sunblock, number one. The number two piece of my arsenal for dealing with the heat is a hat. And not just any old hat, but a trucker hat. And a trucker hat I would typify as something that anyone in a trucker movie would wear. I think Patrick Swayze wore one in some bad movie a while ago. Truckers wear them. They tend to be the hats that have like a firm brim and kind of a foam front, like a big kind of platform foam front, and then the mesh back. The mesh back means I still get some coolness in there, but it's protecting me from the sun. The stiff brim and front end mean I don't have a huge hat sitting on my head. One of my biggest complaints about that technical material, the technical hats that you get for free at a lot of races now these days, is that they're kind of like skull caps. They just kind of sit all over my head, and I don't have a lot of air in there, and I don't enjoy it. It's not comfortable to me. It's too tight. And I don't have a lot of leeway with what I can do. With a trucker hat, I get that breathability in there. I also get a firm brim, which takes that sweat away from me. It doesn't get floppy or bounce around. The hat becomes a great receptacle for holding ice or water or anything else I need to stick in there on race day. It's just a great tool. And so I definitely recommend a hat. Visors, yes, it keeps the sun off your face, but your scalp is still exposed. And even if you have hair, it's not enough to reduce the impact. So I use one from Fuel Belt, which I believe is discontinued, but if you can find a white trucker hat, I would definitely try training with it. It's not sexy. It's not something you'll see tons of people doing, but it is effective, and I personally prefer it to that standard type hat. And then the third and final piece of heat-beating gear, which is something new in the marketplace, and this is the place where I found it, which was Mission Athlete Care. And I think it's called an Endura towel or a cooling towel. Basically, the premise is it's made of these microfibers that you get wet, you can just dunk it in water, you wring it out, and then you snap it real fast. And then you put that on your body, and that activates the fibers and makes them cool, and you essentially get that cooling sensation on your body without the weight of a towel that would just be full of water. It's a very lightweight towel. It definitely does work. It definitely is cool. It does require that you wring out that water as well, and recycling it frequently helps. So, just wetting it once when you leave your house and then running for 3 hours, not so great. But if you have an opportunity to add more water to it as you go, is great. I like the towel. SPF is 45. I typically wear it around my neck for the carotid artery to keep me cool. But I've also played around with kind of draping it over my shoulders as well, or even putting it, underneath my hat, kind of coming down the back, like you see some of those endurance athletes use in the desert-oriented races. But I enjoyed it because it was cooling and also kept that sun off my body. It's another opportunity to race. And so the pictures you'll see from me on the blog this week, especially my race pictures, I got tons of gear on me compared to the competition. But I knew that staying cool, keep my core body temperature down would be a critical differentiating factor between my ability to run to my potential or not. And I could have picked style or I could have picked less. But in that case, I think less would have been indeed less and not more. And my running would have suffered over time. So as you think about managing your heat, whether you use ice or you hydrate differently, maybe you add some salt to your hydration, or you pick drinks or fluids that do have a higher concentration of sodium in them. Whatever your secret is, I'd love to hear it. Please tell me in the comments below. But if you're not feeling 100% great in that heat, and it's not 95 and direct sunlight on the surface of the sun, then odds are you can find some ways to mitigate the effects of that heat and do the best. Now, if you do happen to be kind of heat locked, the heat version of landlocked in a place where it's just hot all the time, you can modify your training obviously by going earlier in the day or running at night. It's not great, but in terms of the overall impact on your body, consistent running in really hot temperatures reduces the pace you can sustain, ultimately reduces the workload on your body. If you could run 6-minute miles, but the heat means you can only run 7:15s, you're not really going to run at your 6-mile potential because you're spending so much time at 7:15s. Your body's working hard, but not the muscles, and the muscles working hard is what makes you stronger. Anyway, lots to talk about in the comments below. Put your stuff there. Otherwise, for now, it's Coach Patrick signing off. Thank you so much for tuning in and checking out another Coach's video podcast, and I'll see you guys next week. If you have feedback, comments, or questions, put them up on facebook.com/Marathon Nation. I will get them, include them in my next recording round. All right, folks. See you guys.